Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rasheed, and you are now on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. And our show today is called War Talk, episode number 2. You know, Carl and I do a series called War Talk, and we do different episodes. But I want to discuss a few things, and I'm not going to hold you long or anything like that. But I want to discuss a few things because you haven't heard from me in a few days, maybe a week or so. And it's not because I haven't been doing anything. Hey, man, we got a huge, a nice guest roster coming up. We got Demetrius Lascaris coming up Saturday. We have KJ Noah coming up. We have Dr. Paul Craig Roberts coming up. We have Dr. Gilbert Doctorow. We have Professor Gibbs coming up. We have we have so many. Let's see, Celine Mansour. We have Just Shankar. Uh, it's just so many we have coming up. I've been working behind the scene. I'm telling you. So I wanted to give you this show, and I'll also check out the new article that dropped yesterday on Patreon. It's a banger. I'm telling you this. Also, you can subscribe to Patreon for half off. I mean, just $3 is not going to kill you. Support the platform. All right. We're going to go into this thing because we see what's going on with the war. Okay. We see how everybody is hoping and praying that this so-called agreement, which is actually a memorandum of understanding or some kind of blueprint for peace will go through. But I continue to tell people that we're in a different time. Well, the people may want war, but change is over the horizon because a system is in place that is unjust, unfair, right? Unruly, and that it is bloodthirsty and full of bloodlust. Therefore, that system being unnatural in a natural environment must be removed, or it will kill itself and the natural environment, according to science. So now what we have is two immovable objects moving at a fast rate at each other, and they're colliding. And what we're watching is the destruction of an old world order as a new world order merges in on that old world order. I know you don't get it from other platforms, but I'm going to tell you the truth. We're not going to do this hoping and praying and skipping and jumping and giving you the best estimates. We're going to teach you the facts. We're going to give you the reality of what is going on. Okay, and then you can do with it as you please. So there's so many things that's going on right now. I want to go to something. Let me see if I can. And I'm not going to bring this up on the screen, so I'm going to go back to something that I brought up before. About, and you can put this in your search engine. It says Columbia professor of economics said the U.S. was $222 trillion in debt. Now, when he said that, remember that was in 2015, okay? 2015 to 2020, that's 5 years. From 2020 to 25, that's another 5 years. So if we just do the math, and we see that the economic barometers have deteriorated, the tax base have eroded so much, the corruption has exploded on another level. We see that there's so much going on, so many pressing issues on the American economy, the U.S. dollar, and the American empire. We then say 222 trillion times 3, because these are in 5-year trenches, right? That leads us up to what? A number that you don't want to talk about. $666 trillion. 666, right? Not including we're in 2026 right now. So more was added to that. And I'm going to read this AI overview. AI overview states the economist who stated the U.S. has a $222 trillion debt is Lawrence Kotlikoff. He is a professor of economics in Boston University, not Columbia, and he frequently uses this figure to describe the U.S. fiscal gap rather than the official national debt. Now, I have a clip of that. I actually have the original interview of him giving this to RT. He gave an interview, and I cut it up into two parts, right? But it's not on this dashboard. And it says, this $222 trillion figure represents the present value difference between all projected future government obligations. Now, remember, that was in 2020, I mean, 2015, all right? And it says, including promised Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security benefits, and all projected future tax revenues. In contrast, the U.S. official national debt held by the public sits near 36 trillion, which is now 40 trillion. So now let us look at this. We see that Medicaid gap is grown, the Medicare gap is grown, the Social Security benefits have grown, and there is no bridge in the gap. We see the U.S. defense budget or war budget has openly increased to 1.5 trillion. And remember what one of the Pentagon officials, Mike Maloof, says: whatever they tell you is 2 or 3 times as much as that. So we're looking at a $5 trillion military budget, which they don't tell you. Now we also look at the something that is very important. It says this $222 trillion figure represents present value difference between all projected government obligations. Right now, it talks about and all projected future tax revenues. Now, since 2015, the tax base, the tax revenues have now been eroded even greater with tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts here and there, tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts here and there. So now what we're seeing is something being exacerbated, the debt problem being exacerbated. And you say, well, you're talking about war, right? Well, without finance, there's no war. This is what I'm trying to get to you guys. I'm trying to get you to understand where we are. They're trying to keep your head in the sky while the entire ground is collapsing beneath your feet. And so we're gonna do this. So I want to lay this base here. I got some clips for you. I want to do this as fast as possible, and I want to just give you an understanding of what is going on. Now, put this in your Google search engine. The derivative market stands at, the last word in that sentence is at, A-T. The derivative market stands at, and then hit search. Okay? Now, the AI overview, and I can pull this stuff up on my screen, but I want to try to go through this a little faster, and I'm trying to make people turn from being lazy because they want everything right now, right at their fingertips, instead of doing a little bit of the studying for themselves. I'm giving you the key words, the key phrases. I'm telling you where to go and what will come up. Okay? And so what I'm doing is helping you to build up that gray matter, because they've dumbed us down so much that this is the microwave age where we want it right now, hot and instant, without any sacrifice to get it. So if you want the information, sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice to get it. Okay? So the derivative market stands at. Now, according to the AI overview, the global derivative market is estimated to exceed 1 quadrillion in total notional value. This massive figure represents the total value of the underlying assets rather than the actual cash exchange in hands. In terms of gross market value, the over-the-counter options of the market sits at about 21.8 trillion. What does this mean? That means that we have a market that is making bets on bets on bets on bets on bets, right? So they're taking up a bet on a debt. And then these people are taking up a bet on their bet. And these people are taking up a bet on their bet on that debt that they betted on, right? So I've had the luxury, and as a matter of fact, I'll have him back on the platform soon, of having Gregory Mannarino, the Lion of Wall Street, come on my platform. And years ago, he told me that the true derivative market stood at over $5 quadrillion. 5 quadrillion, not 5 million, not 50 million, not 500 million, not 5 billion, not 50 billion, not 500 billion, not a trillion. Not 5 trillion, not 50 trillion, not 500 trillion, but $5 quadrillion. That's a lot of money, right? Now, to put that in terms to make you understand, the entire world global GDP stands at roughly between 79 trillion and 115 trillion, whichever one of these numbers you want to accept, because they give you from 79 trillion to 115 trillion dollars. So whichever one of these you want to accept. So what does that mean? That if the derivative market explodes, there is not enough money to cover the bets. That means that we're in serious trouble. This is one of the reasons why the empire is acting with impunity right now. This is one reason why the empire is becoming desperate. This is one reason why they're trying to dumb down the masses. This is one reason why we need war. They need war. It's because this is a parasitic system. And a parasite derives its life from sucking the life out of everybody else. That means the debt must expand more. That means war must be had. Means weapons must be made. That means weapons must be used. Lives must be expended to keep this going. Do you understand the reality of what the system is? It is a vampire system, a leech system, Nosferatu. It sucks the life's blood out of individual nation states to keep the system going. Okay? This is what is the reality of the situation. All right? So everybody, just bear with me. I'm trying to get you guys to bear with me as we continue to go on. All right? What is going on here? Oh, hold on 1 second. I guess they're messing up my thing. Um, so let's go a little further. All right, now I want you to put this in the Google search engine. We are set for a bond market crash. And remember, Gregory Mannarino stated that watch the bond market or the debt market. That's what you watch. Because when it starts being iffy in trading, then notice that the system is in tremendous trouble, right? And then we are already set up for a correction. And I continue to tell you, a correction only happens when something is incorrect. You don't correct. If someone asks you what's 2 plus 2 and you give the answer 4, I can't correct you because that's the right answer. But if somebody asks you what's 2 plus 2 and I say 77, then somebody can come and correct me because I made the wrong answer. So if there's a correction to be had politically, if there's a correction to be had geopolitically, and if there's a correction to be had monetarily, right, then that means we have had wrong answers. We have made mistakes. We're on a crooked path for a correction to take place, right? All right. Matter of fact, hold on before we go any further. Hold on before we go any further. And if you hear noise in the background, that's my son over in the other room. I'm in my office area. He's over in the other room and he's doing his streaming. So if you hear a little, just ignore that, okay? Um, all right. All right, here we are, right here. Now, according to the AI overview here, the word a correction is the act of making something right. So if the markets must be corrected, if the political system must be corrected, if the justice system must be corrected, right? If the industries must be corrected, if there are bubbles in the system, if there are inaccuracies in the system, if the debt market must be corrected, according to the definition, a correction is the act of making something right. That means that all of them are wrong, or the specific change made to fix a mistake, error, or inaccuracy. So there's a mistake in all of it, there's an error in all of it, and there's an inaccuracy which causes something to be corrected. Depending on the context, it can refer to an edit in a document, a punishment, an adjustment in scientific data, or a shift in financial markets. Okay? So now, why would I say that to you all? All right, why would I say that to you all? Because I want you to understand something. Let me play something for you real quick. Um, and this comes from Trump. Okay, and the reason he wanted this so-called memorandum of understanding really quickly. All right, it's not because he wanted peace. It is because when he wanted peace, he didn't want the peace that you're used to, the PEACE peace. No, he was trying to take a PIECE of Iran's revenues, of Iran's independence, of Iran's sovereignty, of Iran's resources, oil, gas, and everything else, as he did with Venezuela. So he wanted that type of peace. And since that peace did not come about, he was forced to capitulate openly, but behind closed doors, they're still trying to do a roundabout. But he had to present to the public that he wanted a PEACE. All right, there's a big difference here. All right, so I want you to listen to what he says here.
And I did just want to ask you about this. A wise man once said in January of 2020, Iran never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. That wise man.
Who said that?
Donald Trump.
Oh, that's what I thought you were going to say.
So how do you go back to the United States and convince a skeptical American public that this deal is a
look,
win?
Here they lost militarily, okay? It's very tough because I know that no matter what, if I would go, by the way, if I'd go another 3 or 4 weeks, those same people that are critical would say, he went too long, he should have done, no matter what. If they raised the white flag of surrender, and if they said, praise be to Allah, Donald Trump is the greatest president ever. We totally concede, we totally give up. This war is over, we have failed. The New York Times and CNN and a couple of others, they're not all that dishonest, they say Iran had a great victory, okay? And they practically do that. It's amazing. When we knocked out their last ship, they had 159 ships. When we knocked out the last ship, the Times refused to do a story on it. They said, why wouldn't you? They don't have a Navy, and you don't want to do a story on it. They don't have an Air Force, you don't want to do a story. We need a fair press. And that's why they're all doing so badly, because they lost credibility. When I win in a landslide, and I had 93% bad press, they take good stories about me and make them bad. But the only reason that happened is because they have so little, the media has so little credibility that the people voted for me. 93% of the stories on network, ABC is horrible. I think ABC is the worst. NBC is terrible. And CBS is terrible. CNN, obviously. And I never get good stories, no matter what I do. I could do the greatest thing. I won't get good stories on this. I'll get it from fair media. I'll get it from all over the world. They're running good. But no matter what I do, I'm going to get bad press. I know that. Now, if I did the opposite, if I went out and continued to bomb them for another 4, just bomb the hell out of them, I'd get bad press on that. No, there's nothing I can do. But what this does is it allows the ships to go. If we keep bombing, those ships won't be going. And you're talking about $500, $600, $700 million a day. It's a lot of money. A lot of money. That's why the world is okay. It's liquid. It's fine. Also, we run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. There are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out. And there'll be a time when you wouldn't be able to get it. And you want to see bedlam? So for all those so-called geniuses that want to show me how smart they are, ask them why didn't they blow up General Soleimani? Ask that of the general and a couple of other people that I like very much, but boy, are they wrong. Go ahead. How about you? Thank you, Peter. I give you more, Peter, but people will say I like you too much.
So he let the cat out the bag. There was only 4 weeks left of oil. He let the cat out the bag. The United States economy is already hemorrhaging right now. It's bleeding to death right now. The European economy is hemorrhaging. It's bleeding to death right now. He let the cat out of the bag. This is why he was forced to capitulate. After demanding complete capitulation, and surrender of Iran. You don't believe me? See, I told you economics is tied to this stuff. He understands that even though there's a memorandum of understanding, that the damage that has been done in between the time that he pulled out of the JCPOA and to this very moment where they have come to some type of quote unquote agreement, the damage to the global economy is horrific. And you're starting to see it in prices, you're starting to see it in shortages, you're starting to see it everywhere. All right. As a matter of fact, how can one president go from this right here? All right. I want you to hear what he has to say here. Demand total surrender to what he just said. All right, listen to this.
The war with Iran. President Trump is demanding the unconditional surrender of the Islamic Republic.
But the Islamic State appears to show no interest in surrendering as the war now heads into its second week. U.S. forces have hit over 3,000 targets in the first week of Operation Epic Fury. And according to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, the U.S. is showing no sign of slowing down.
We have team coverage of the fierce fighting, the president's ultimatum, and the impact of the war at home. Let's begin first with John Fenoglio with tonight's developments.
Tonight, relentless widespread airstrikes across Iran. The U.S. and Israel's attacks now in their 8th day. This reporter with Iranian state TV running for cover as a strike lands nearby. Iran continuing to launch counterattacks on Israel and at military and civilian targets throughout neighboring Gulf nations. Shrapnel from an intercepted Iranian missile damaging this apartment building east of Tel Aviv.
I think what the administration is encountering is a willingness of the regime to take the fight as far as it can and to take it broader than was originally anticipated.
President Trump posting, "There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender." The Pentagon says the U.S. is not standing down, announcing strikes on more than 3,000 Iranian targets so far. Israel continuing to hammer Iran's most powerful proxy, Hezbollah, in Lebanon. Tens of thousands of civilians have fled Beirut suburbs after Israeli evacuation warnings. The U.S. says it has significantly diminished Iran's military and that counterattacks have slowed. Nearly 20,000 Americans in the Middle East returning to the U.S. The State Department scrambling to get people out, but thousands remain stranded.
Having the State Department or whoever tell us, you need to get out immediately. Well, but there's no help. So you're on your own to get your own travel plans. And that was the most stressful thing.
The war expanding to at least 14 countries, and tonight numerous reports that Russia is providing Iran with intelligence about the locations of U.S. troops and weapons in the region. President Trump visibly frustrated when asked about it late Friday.
Can I be honest? It's just, I have a lot of respect for you. You've always been very nice to me. What a stupid question that is to be asking at this time. We're talking about something else. Can we keep this maybe a little bit? Go ahead, please.
The Iranian attacks have killed at least 6 U.S. service members, at least 11 people in Israel, and 3 other people in the United Arab Emirates. Iran state media reports that at least 1,300 people have been killed in the U.S. and Israeli attacks. Tonight, neither side is backing down. In the News Center, I'm John Fenoglio, KTLA 5 News.
So we go from a demand of total capitulation to America capitulating. Huh? But listen to me good. I often tell you, America only has one here. And a lot of people think that this is the be all. And I'm telling you that America, when she's losing or when she's falling behind, she comes up with some type of agreement, some type of understanding, some type of international treaty, some type of negotiation for the 3 R's of empire: to rest, to rearm, and then recalibrate her policies. She never gives up. She just approaches it from a different area, a different viewpoint. So if you believe that this is the end, especially when a nation is hemorrhaging economically, politically, internally, and externally. You have lost your flipping mind. I'm telling you this. And then think about this. I want to just go here for a second. We talked about what she just demanded of Iran 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Total capitulation, right? Walked away from the JCPOA, a deal that Iran was not happy with, right? Right? Iran uh, agreed to it to show good faith to say, listen, we don't want a nuclear. How can you tell me that I've got to be up under all of these restrictions and all of this monitoring when you are talking about investing $10 trillion over the next 5 years to upgrade your thousands of nuclear weapons? You have lost your flipping mind. You're not going to hold me at the barrel of a gun, but you want to have a bazooka at me. And you say that's justice. Now, Iran is a signatory to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. America is also. Russia is also. China is too. France is too. The UK is too. And in that agreement, they were supposed to disarm. Has any of them disarmed? Then that shows you just how dedicated they are to that treaty. And when you talk to them about disarmament, what do they say? That nuclear weapons plays a great part of their defense doctrine. Then who says that you have the right to have that and I don't? Who says that your defense of your nation is more means more than my defense of my nation and my people? You can go straight to hell. You don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Go straight to hell when you're trying to tell me these double standards. You're crazy. So that you can dictate to me, so that you can strike me. As a matter of fact, America's policy, she changed her policy to openly state that she would use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon states and as a first strike possibility. And you don't want me to have one, man, I'll tell you what. Yeah, you play those games you want to. See, you can play it with them, but you won't play it with me. If I'm the leader, you'll get a chance to view my nuclear sites when I get a chance to view yours. When yours is constantly under surveillance, and we have some type of verification that you have disarmed or you're close to completely disarming, then we'll do the same to me. Remember, I'm not the one to use nuclear weapons once or twice. You are. So the burden is on you, not on me. This is what they always do in politics. The Western world is bizarro, I told you. They rape somebody and then they put the onus on the victim to prove that the victim is in pain. That's not in pain. They don't accept responsibility for the rape, the pillage, the robbery, the ransacking of nations. And then they ignore your plight, your pain. And then when you flee the areas that they destroyed and destabilized, and they come to Europe or the United States, the Europeans in the United States, they start screaming about the influx of migrants. If you would have left them alone, they would have been in their own country. How about that? If you stop stealing their resources, they'll stay home and build for themselves. If you treat them with dignity and stop bribing their leadership and stop siphoning off their resources, then you don't have to worry about an influx of migrants. Mind your own business. See, nobody talks direct like this, but I do. And I don't care who it offends, because truth hurts people sometimes. And that, like I always tell you, my mom says it's better to be pissed off than get pissed on. You understand me? So, shout out to everybody who's in the building. Shout out. It's so many I can't. I'm just gonna put a few more in the chat up on the screen real quick, and then I gotta go to something real quick to follow up on what I was saying. Okay, let me go to I'm gonna play that clip that follows this, but I want to go to the economic collapse blog because I was scrolling down there right before I went live, and it says this right here: a historic energy squeeze is locked in. U.S. oil revenues have fallen for 7 weeks in a row. A global oil inventories and global oil inventories will soon hit the lowest level ever recorded. Could that be the reason why Trump did what he did to buy time? Could that be the reason? And not seeking peace and not seeking an agreement? Because he just told you that they were 4 weeks away from being out of oil. Remember that Biden had drained the U.S. strategic oil reserves. And when Trump came into office, he did not refill them. And to keep down the prices of oil, he was selling off strategic oil reserves in America to try to keep the prices of oil down. He has not refilled those strategic oil reserves. Yet China has 1.4, 1.5 billion barrels of strategic oil reserves, not including the new refineries that they've set up because they found new oil there, not including the power of Siberia 1, the power of Siberia 2 that runs from China to Russia, runs through Mongolia, Siberia and stuff like that, not including China is 84%, 85% self-sufficient in energy now, with a mixture of renewables, solar, wind, thermal, all of that stuff. All right. But yet, the so-called richest nation, the so-called most powerful nation, the so-called greatest of the learned nations of the world can't seem to get their head together, their thoughts together, and do something like this. But they can get their heads together to come up with weapons, weapon suits, and upgrading nuclear weapons. Why is that? Because you're not a priority. If you were a priority, then they would take that money and invest in education, because we know that education is the base of any society. And without proper education, you can't produce proper guidance. You cannot produce civilized people. You cannot produce people who can compete on an international scale, on a global scale. And that is why you see America falling behind and reverting to straight military power, because she can no longer compete. Because the educational system has dumbed down the masses for the few. The few in power have dumbed down the masses to keep the power, while putting America in a situation where the empire is spread thin militarily, is being beat back and beat down by her competition, and is losing her position globally in every area which we speak. China is challenging and taking over in every area that the American power, the American hegemon, the American superpower once dominated it. Right? So let's go to this clip again. Remember when he said that Iran must capitulate. Right? Now let's see what everybody is saying about the deal, the so-called deal that Trump negotiated when he tore up the JCPOA.
So it was then the location for the peace treaty signed in 1919 to end World War I. And now the Palace of Versailles, just outside of Paris, also the location for the signing by Donald Trump of the US and Iran peace agreement. Trump signing after a day at the G7 summit, even as he threatened, though, to resume attacks if Iran fails to honour its commitments. The deal also signed by Iran. It offers a permanent end to hostilities, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and the starting of a 60-day negotiating clock to reach a final deal on Iran's nuclear program. Criticism, though, that it offers Iran several benefits while extracting little in return. Well, we'll discuss it in just a moment. But first of all, Ellen Gainsford has this report.
This was not easy, I can tell you.
There were historic surroundings for US President Donald Trump's much-anticipated signature. The agreement was inked in the Palace of Versailles, with French President Emmanuel Macron looking on. President Masoud Pezeshkian did the same on behalf of Iran. So what's in the 14-point Memorandum of Understanding? The agreement extends the current ceasefire, including in Lebanon, leaving 60 days for Iran and the US to come to a more detailed, longer-lasting agreement. Concessions to Iran include allowing Tehran to sell its oil freely, immediately, while the full lifting of sanctions and the release of frozen assets will happen over time, linked to the progress of future talks. And a $300 billion fund will be developed to help the reconstruction of Iran. It's currently unclear whether the US will contribute. It's a controversial issue that's been much criticized, including within Donald Trump's own party. It reopens the Strait of Hormuz, with 2 months assured toll-free. But for now, there's no longer-term guarantee that Iran won't impose a fee. The US will also end its naval blockade on Iran. On the all-important nuclear issue, Iran has agreed to never develop a nuclear weapon and pledged to dilute its stocks of enriched uranium. But the exact details of how this will be guaranteed will be hammered out in future talks on an extendable 60-day timeline. The JCPOA, the Obama-era agreement, which Donald Trump scrapped, took around 20 months of negotiations to develop.
Well, International Affairs Editor Doug Herbert is with me now here on set. Doug, as you see it, this is a deal in name only.
Well, it's not just how I see it. It's many Republicans are angry, a little bit relieved that something happened, but they're also in a state of disbelief. This is a deal in name only, and there's almost a bit of dishonesty even calling it a peace agreement, quote, a deal. It's none of the above. It's a memorandum of understanding in itself is a mishmash of words that means nothing. Boil this down to its essence right now. Even the pro-Trump New York Post, the tabloid in New York City Trump loves, said, and this is a quote, that Trump's Iran deal gives the Islamic Republic big wins up front. America gets nothing. That is the sense you're hearing reverberating across the political spectrum, like I said, even among many Republicans, that this is a deal that no matter how Trump and his associates try to spin it, it just can't be spun. The spinning needs spinning, in a sense. And why do I say that? Well, first of all, some of the main elements. Going into this war, you'll remember that Trump vowed unconditional surrender would be the only conditions under which they'd stop bombing. Not only is this not unconditional surrender, but it seems that Iran has emerged emboldened, politically, if not militarily. Militarily, yes, it's definitely been weakened, if not decimated, but emboldened both in a political sense and perhaps in an economic sense, and I'll explain that in a sec. So the main thing that we're being sold on this deal, or Trump is trying, the Strait of Hormuz is effectively reopened. Well, true and false on two fronts. It's going to be reopened for the next 30 days. The U.S. is going to lift its blockade on Iranian ports, Iranian oil shipments in and out of its own of Iran's ports. But in effect, Iran retains leverage. It's been very clear about this. It is absolutely unclear what happens after the 60-day period. Iran says that it reserves the right to impose service fees and to retain sovereignty, effective control over the Strait of Hormuz. So right there's no deal. There is simply a memo of understanding, and my bet would be that Iran is very much going to keep its eyes on that more than fine print there. And remember, Strait of Hormuz was open before the war. So we're back to the pre-war status quo. I'll say that again. The Strait of Hormuz was open before the war. Donald Trump started this war of choice, had it effectively closed, Iran effectively closed it, so it's now reopened. We're back to where we started. The other big thing, there's no mention, by the way, of ballistic missiles. There's no mention of the proxies, Iran's sponsorship of militants throughout the region. In this deal, everything, Stuart, and I mean everything in the kitchen sink, is punted down the pitch to a later day. So we are left with the deal which, as a Republican, man named Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, who actually lost to a Trump-backed MAGA candidate in a recent election, so you could say he has nothing to lose. But he basically said this is the worst foreign policy blunder by the United States in decades. And that is a sentiment that we are hearing echoed across the political spectrum today.
There's another big unknown, isn't there, Doug? I mean, notably, of course, is Benjamin Netanyahu going to play ball with this deal?
Benjamin Netanyahu was not privy to this deal. He did not sign the deal. And you're absolutely right. This is not a minor point. This is not, stopping a party pooper and torpedoing the deal before it's even had a chance. This is perhaps one of the most massive unknowns in this deal because, as of this hour, Israel has made no indication, in fact, just the contrary, that it is ready to give up, as it sees it, its right to retaliate against Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group in Lebanon, which essentially controls the country, calls the shots there. And Iran has made it clear that if that war continues and that if Israeli troops, here's a big one, don't withdraw from southern Lebanon, which they've essentially occupied. If that doesn't happen, the war could resume again. Iran is ready to consider the so-called deal, which isn't a deal, violated. So some of the pillars of this deal, can't emphasize it enough. It's not torpedoing the deal. It's not being negative. It's not being subjective to say this isn't a deal. The Strait of Hormuz is back to what it was before the war for now, for a few days. Iran still says it controls it. The Israeli troops remain in southern Lebanon. There's been no indication Benjamin Netanyahu, facing elections in October, is not enthralled to his hardline coalition government and will do their bidding and not Trump's bidding. So, in a sense, all bets are off. And the nuclear issues, all of it remains to be negotiated. As the New York Times said in its lead editorial today, opinion editorial, the U.S. has emerged economically, politically, and militarily weaker from this deal. There's no other way to spin it, even if it's obviously a relief that for now the guns have been silenced.
So now we're gonna address a few things, okay? A few things on what was said in there. So just bear with me, okay? Because there's a lot to unpack of what he said. So why did Trump do it? Why did he finally realize that he needed some type of breather? I put in the Google search engine, we are set for a bond market crash. And the AI overview says this: a bond market crash is characterized by a rapid, severe drop in bond prices, which causes yields, interest rates to skyrocket, which we're watching. This current environment by elevated energy costs. So if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, then the Baba Mandel Strait is closed, then the Red Sea is closed, then the Gulf of Oman is closed, then the Arabian Gulf is closed due to threats from Iran. What does that do? That elevates the prices of everything from petrol, chemicals, to oil, to gas, to wheat, to rice, to all kinds of things, right? Fertilizer, everything, right? Okay, so that goes there, and it says this current environment is pressured by elevated energy costs, stubborn inflation, heavy government debt loads, that's another one, right? And returning bond vigilantes demanding higher risk premiums. The relationship between prices and yields is inverse. If a crash occurs, here's how it impacts different areas of your finance. Now, so we see an America essentially under economic duress. This is why. See, economics is the main thing. I also put in the search engine while the video was going on. So I'm telling you this so that you can do it, so that you can see that Rasheed is not lying to you and he's doing this on the fly so that you can do it on the fly. In the Google search engine, I put in what would happen to the U.S. economy if interest rates spike to 5%. And the AI overview says if interest rates spike to 5%, the U.S. economy would experience a significant contraction as borrowing costs soar. Now, hold on top of that. If we have bond market failure or bond sales failure, U.S. Treasury sales that are failing, and we have a tax base that has been cut, and we have growing debt, growing inflation, and the American populace under a heavy strain of debt burden from the students to the families, right? This would trigger an immediate slowdown in consumer spending and business investment, severely cooling the housing market and heavily burden the federal budget with rising national debt costs. What does that mean? What does that mean? An economic collapse. Not a recession, a depression. They don't want to say that, but it is a depression, not a recession. Okay. All right. Now, let me pull up something for you guys because we have to unpack this stuff so well. Give me 1 second because this is a new thing that I'm using now. Let's see what it says. All right. Where is it at? I'm trying to pull up the map for you guys. Okay. Give me 1 second. The map. All right. I think this is. Hold on. Let me see if this is the one. Yeah, because it has an ad in it. Let me pull this up for you guys. Uh, Maybe right here. All right. We're gonna go here. I'm gonna pull this up. I'm gonna take this ad off of here. Mm. The ad should pop off in a second. Um, Close ad. I closed the ad. See if it's gonna allow us to do it. Mm. All right, here we are. Oh man, they have a whole of ads pop up. Let me take this off. This comes courtesy of Defense Scoop. If Defense Scoop won't leave these ads off, then I'll go straight to Google Pictures. All right. All right. Let's see. And let me see if I can just refresh this. 1 second, because it's very important you see this. Let me refresh this real quick. Okay. Now let's see if it's gonna come up. Hmm. Now they want to block it. If you look closely, there's the Persian Gulf back there. If you see closely in the back, but I'm gonna have to go on since they want to block this. I'm going to just take this off the screen, stop sharing. All right, and I'm going to go to Google. It's more than one way to skin a cat. All right, so now in Google, if you want me to, I can pull up the thing. But I want to say to you all right now, um, something's going on my end real quick. It's not my internet. It's not anything on my end, but it's something that's happening in my with my dashboard. But I want to say this: the Strait of Hormuz continually is referenced as international waters. Okay, and the United States has made a sticker about this and saying that Iran must not and cannot be able to control the Strait of Hormuz. Right. So now we're going to do this on the fly. All right, just on the fly. All right, let's go to Google Images. And I'm just going to pull up something for you guys, okay? Let's see, we'll share the screen on Google Images. Share the screen with a Strait of Hormuz. It should pop up on the screen, right? It should be up there right now. Sometimes it takes a second to pop up. Uh, let's see if it's up there. I know they're not bothering this. I guess I might be pissing a few people off. Hmm. I may people off everybody by saying what I'm saying. All right, here we go. There it is. It's finally up there. All right. So now this is the Strait of Hormuz. Let me see about. Let me highlight this one. And I'm going to take this off. I just wanted to give you no coast called the United States coast up there. There's no coast up there called the Palestinian or the Israeli, the occupied Palestinian coast right there. There's no coast of Britain over there. There's no coast from the European nations over there. The coast right there to get through the Strait of Hormuz on the right side is Iran, and on the left side is Oman. So we have an understanding of that. And I'm gonna take this off the screen real quick. All right. Now, let us go to the definitions because definitions mean everything. Okay. According to Google, put this in length of territorial waters. Under international law, a country's territorial waters extend up to 12 nautical miles or uh, 13.8 land miles or 22.2 kilometers from its coastal baseline. Within this zone, coastal states, listen to this part. Now, this is international law. This is not U.S. law. This is not Rasheed's law. This is international law. Within this zone, coastal states have full sovereign rights over the water, seabed, and airspace, though foreign vessels are granted the right of innocent passage. So now, if Iran so chose to stop American or international ships from coming through or international flights from overflying, they have every right to under international law. Okay? All right? Now let's look at this. Let's go further. Because we have to break this stuff down because what they're feeding you is a lot of lies, okay? Shout out to my guy M Sparks for the super chat. I'll put it on the screen in a few minutes. Um, the AI overview, and put this in the Google search engine. U.S. recognized territorial waters extend to what length? The United States recognizes territorial waters that extend 12 nautical miles, or the exact same 13.8 land miles, or 22.2 kilometers, right, from its coastal baseline. Within this zone, the U.S., listen to this part, exercises full sovereign control over the water, seabed, and airspace, though foreign vessels retain the right of innocent passage. So, what is the difference in the Gulf of Mexico, or you skirt along the coast of Florida, or Alabama, or Mississippi, or Texas, or Louisiana, right, close to the U.S. coastline? What is the difference in that? And then the difference in ships skirting along what we just saw, which is the Strait of Hormuz, which is in Iranian territorial waters. And why does America get to exercise full sovereign right and control over the water, the seabed, and the airspace close to its land in that water, but Iran does not? I'm asking. I'm asking. Because other people don't. Okay? Now, let's go to something else before I go back to the chat and highlight my guy, M Sparks. Put this in your Google search engine. Meaning of occupation of someone's land, because remember the guy says, what we were talking about, he was saying that, and he looked at it as if it was a heresy to question Israel's occupation of Lebanese territory. He says because Iran says that in the agreement, Israel must pull out of Lebanese territory or else the war will continue. Right? And he says that America has lost on all fronts. Well, no, that is not a lose-lose situation for America. That is supposed to be a win-win situation for the Lebanese and for international law. Because according to the AI overview, the occupation of someone else's land means physically residing upon, using, or controlling property that belongs to another individual without holding legal title or a formal lease. Depending on the context, it can refer to a legal agreement, a trespass, or a pathway to claim ownership. It is hostile possession, adverse possession. Huh? Talk back to me. See, we do this real. We do this live on the air to show you the hypocrisy of these people. And then he says that Israel wants to have the freedom of action to retaliate against Hezbollah's response to Israeli aggression. Now, the word retaliate means to respond to an attack, injury, or harmful action by doing something similar in return. It is essentially the act of getting even, striking back, or seeking revenge. So how can Israel claim retaliation when they have invaded Lebanese territory, Syrian territory, Palestinian territory? If these people lands have been invaded, then under international law, they are the people who have the right to retaliate because their land is under occupation. And according to international law, and we're going to see this real quick. Let's see. Under international law, an occupied people have the right to resist occupation. Now we're going to see what's going to come up. I'm putting this up. You hear me saying this right out. Now listen what this says. AI overview. Now I just put this in talking to you guys. International law recognizes the right of peoples to self-determination and to struggle against foreign or colonial occupation. So if Israel has occupied southern Syria, and Israel has occupied Palestine, and Israel is occupying part of Lebanon, according to international law, they are not the ones who are retaliating, they are the aggressors. The ones who are retaliating are the people who are forced under occupation. We have to get this right. And let's look. Let's look. The relationship between occupation and the right to resist is complex, as different bodies of international law address it. Self-determination, according to the UN General Assembly resolutions, such as Resolution 3103, formally affirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples under colonial and foreign domination to liberate themselves, including through armed struggle. Huh? What? So if you're in Syria, the Syrians have the right to fire against you. If you're in Palestine, the Palestinians have the right to fire against you. If you're in Northern Africa, the African nations have the right to fire upon you. If you are in Lebanon, the Lebanese resistance have the international right and backing to resist this through might of arms. So they are the retaliatory factor and not Israel. So when people form their statements, they have to be very careful about what they say because they'll make the aggressor the victim and the victim the aggressor. You understand? Man, we do this easy here. We do this easy here. This is very easy here. Common sense. Common sense. Oh, man. The vice unexpectedly stopped. Common sense. Of course it unexpectedly stopped because I'm talking about Israel. According, that's right. Yeah. Let's see. Oops, something went wrong. Try reloading again. Man, if you don't stop this, stop it. Stop this. So, shout out to M Sparks for this $2 super chat. You see how they mess with the channel when I'm starting to give you these definitions and stuff? Huh? You see that? This is what they do because they are afraid of truth. And when you are afraid of truth or you are afraid of the spread of truth, that means that you benefit from lies. You are doing things under the cover of darkness because if you are not afraid of the truth, if you have nothing to hide, then you would love the truth because the truth benefits all. It might not come the way you want it. That's right, restless natives, indigenous people fighting invading settlers. You have that right. Listen, according to international law, the indigenous people of Australia have the right to armed struggle. The indigenous people around the world have the right. Do you believe that if, look, just say this, look what is happening now in Europe. Ukraine is saying that Russia is invading. Are they not in an armed struggle? Huh? Whether it's true or not, are they in an armed struggle? So why does not those other people and nations have the right to armed struggle and have the inalienable right, according to the UN Charter, according to UN law, to resist occupation and colonialism? Talk to me. I'm just asking. Yeah, restless natives, they call Mandela a terrorist, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Winnie was, a lot of people give all the credit to Mandela, but Winnie was the one. When Mandela was up in that prison, Winnie was the one running things. Winnie was the one that was out there fighting these oppressors. She didn't get the credit that was due to her because she was a woman. But they were terrified of her because she said, if you light me on fire, I'm going to light you back on fire. You have to speak the language of the aggressor. Just like they call Mugabe a terrorist. Britain labeled him a terrorist, right? Do you know the United States did not remove the label of terrorist from Mandela to decades after he became president? Do you know that? Do you know Britain was calling Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, a terrorist because he was fighting for the liberation of Zimbabwe? And then they turn around and say that this is a man of freedom. And when they thought they had put in place people around him that would sell off all the resources, and he brought that to a naught, guess what they did? They sabotaged the Zimbabwean economy. Everybody, men, women, and child, this is your innate right to struggle against oppression, to struggle against occupation, to struggle against all of that for freedom, because every life that comes in the universe has the right to enjoy freedom, justice, and equality. Freedom, justice, and equality. And the first law of nature is self-preservation. You don't need to look at a UN charter. You don't need to look at US law. You don't have to look at European law. The first law of nature is self-preservation. And if you do not, if that law is lost, then what use is life? You're supposed to fight like hell to defend yours. Right? Let's see. Dave says very few countries that vote to lift sanctions on Cuba have the balls to speak out on America's threat on Cuba. Same too about speaking out about Israel. Well, let's see. Yeah. But see, the time is coming where more people are going to speak out, because right now the empire still has power, but the empire is being exposed. The empire is being exposed, and all of its minions are being exposed with it. All right. And as more nations step up to the plate to leave the dollar and the dollar-based system and the Western-based financial architecture onto something else, the more exposed the system will be. And then the more emboldened those who have freed themselves from dollar, euro, pound servitude will stand up and say it loud. This is what's scaring America. This is what's scaring the Western world. They see their world crashing and burning, and they, in their minds, they cannot fathom a world where they are not the powers of the world. I want you to think about that. A UN set up with 5 permanent members, billions of people on the planet, no representation for Latin America, no representation for the Caribbean, no representation for Africa, only a little bit of representation for Asia, and then you got all 4 other permanent members. And Europe, the smallest continent on the planet, has well, you won't say Russia because most of Russia resides in Asia. But if you want to say Russia, you got France, you got Britain, you got the United States. And then the only non-Western, non-white that had a seat on there is China. And they weren't meant to have one. They thought Chiang Kai-shek was going to be the leader of China. But Mao had another saying on that. So you have no representation, no Security Council seat for the most, Now, I want you to understand this. Africa has 1.5 billion people on it. Europe has 750 million or 650, something like that. Africa has 1.5 billion people. Asia has 3 point X amount of billions of people there. Latin America, it's close to a billion people there. No representation. Stop this, man. Who you think you talking to? I didn't fall off a turnip truck. I didn't fall off a turnip truck. And like Donald says, these days come, I often say this, these days common sense is not so common anymore. Right? And listen, I just wanted to talk to you guys. Tomorrow at if I'm not mistaken, at 1, we're gonna have Professor Kevin Barrett live from Morocco on the platform. Saturday, I think we have 2 shows Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. I know one is with Dimitri Lascaris. All right, I think that'll be at 1 or 12 or something like that with Demetrius Lascaris. We have another show. I can't think of the time of it because they were just coming in and into my email. People were just saying their available times and to book this down right before the show went live. We're gonna have Salim Mansour on. We're gonna have KJ Noah on. We're gonna have uh, it's so many of them. I just cannot think. But we're gonna have a whole bunch of shows. So y'all keep checking out. Please go and subscribe to all of the platforms. If you can donate. Matter of fact, let me put a couple things up here I want to see on the screen for you. If you can, here's your buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee. Really would appreciate that. Okay. For those who like to use buy me a coffee, I would really appreciate that. You can scan the code, buy me a coffee. For those of you who do Cash App, here's the code for the Cash App. You can support the Red Pill Diaries on that. For those of you who do PayPal, you can support me on that. Here's the code up there for that. For those of you who do super chat, super things, I really appreciate it. For those of you who just visit and just participate, that means a lot. And for those of you who like and share and also hit the bell icon and tell others about the platform, I appreciate that also. That's just as good, you know. And I would like for you to go over and check out all our platforms. We're going to be doing more streaming over on Locals soon. We haven't been doing as much on that because I've been really trying to get you more guests on here. Check out our Patreon, our Rumble, our Odyssey. We're on what is it called? Telegram, Twitter, Twitch, Kick, pretty much all of them. So go and support, sign up for it, all of that stuff. We're on BitChute also. I forgot about that. We're on BitChute also. So I want to take the time out before I go any further to say to you all, I really appreciate the time that you spent with me because you didn't have to do this. You could have spent it somewhere else. And I know that time is the most valuable commodity, right? I know that. I understand that. Nobody has to tell me that. I understand that time is an unrenewable resource. So when you spend your time with me, I'm hoping and I'm praying that you're getting an equal or greater payout for your time. Because once it's used up, you can never get it back. That's why they call it spending your time. So I want to say to you all, remember to do right by others, not because there's some material gain to be had or because of some accolades being offered, but do right by others because it's the right, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, remember that God Almighty is watching you. As my late, great, and beautiful mother would always say, God sits high on the throne of power, but he looks low at the actions of man. Know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous because righteousness is the only thing that's going to get us out of here. Hey, mama, Your baby boy loves you more than life. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Peace. We're out of here.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a